Lefty here with the Betting Network Early Market Report for Wednesday, May 19th. If this is your first time watching a market report video, I'll link one of the first market report videos I did in the top right-hand corner now. That video will do a better job at explaining exactly what we do in these videos and what we hope to achieve here. As always, because it's so early, it's important to remember that the data we see on screen that we'll be analyzing is only reflecting a very small amount of bets. These numbers will certainly change as the day goes on. It's still helpful to see the starting point because oftentimes something we see later in the day will make more sense based on something we notice in the market earlier. These numbers can tell us a story, and right now it's the opening chapters of the story. Let's get right into it. We have the Wednesday, May 19th schedule on screen here. Let's look at Colorado, San Diego. No real surprise here. We see San Diego getting the bets. 72% of the bets, 95% of the money. Pinnacle opened 233. They're up to 250. Yeah, we're seeing this price is going up. The Rockies' bats right now are just night and day away from Coors Field. And as high as this price is on the Padres, they're probably deserving of the 250 price. Last night's extra innings game was probably the Rockies' best chance to steal a game in this series. Now, I don't know if I can lay that price, but I don't disagree with the price. And I can't really remember the last time I bet a minus 250 or higher favorite, though. I'm not opposed to it. It would take a lot for me to get there. If I feel a team is deserving of being like, a 3-1 favorite and I can get them at minus 250, I would certainly bet them. But, my thing is, how many times do we see a big favorite, that's largely based on the starting pitching matchup, result in a game that's tied in the later innings and both starting pitchers are now out of the game? The way I look at that is like if it's tied in the later innings, it's basically close to a coin flip, and I definitely don't want to have a big favorite in that spot, and it seems to happen quite a bit. Padres are obviously the better team in every aspect and deserving of this price. And look at last night's game. Padres closed as minus 230 favorites. The game was tied 1-1 the whole way and went to extra innings. The live odds for that game after the fifth inning, the times I checked, it hovered between minus 125 and minus 140 the rest of the way after the fifth inning. So, actually, and you know what? Speaking of favorites or big favorites, quick story here. When I first started getting serious about sports betting, I was roughly like 15 years old, which seems young, but it was normal for my family and for the area I grew up in. But I became a member of a website called Frank777.com. It was owned and operated by Frank Lefty Rosenthal with the help of his son-in-law. But Frank Rosenthal is who Robert De Niro portrayed in the movie Casino as the character Ace Rothstein. If you haven't seen the movie Casino, what are you doing with your life? At least Google Frank Rosenthal. Very interesting story. But anyway, in order to become a member of this site, Frank77, you had to be 18 years old and you had to submit an essay on why you wanted to become a member. I wasn't 18 years old, but there was no real background check or anything. You just had to click I am 18 years old box or whatever. But anyway, Frank did daily lessons. He went over terminology, told stories. It was a really cool website. He ran it up until the day he passed away in 2008. 2008 I think it was. And I was a daily active member pretty much every weekday after school from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's when he did like live Q&As and everything. But one thing he told me or mentioned in this on this website one day was never bet a favorite in baseball higher than minus 150. And that stuck with me for years. He said, there's better spots to bet your money. Now, no question, Frank was unbelievably sharp and would absolutely be on the Mount Rushmore of sports bettors, up there with Billy Walters and Arnold Rothstein, or at least those are like my top three. But he was actually wrong in this instance about never betting a favorite higher than 150. But I get what he was trying to do. He was just speaking in general terms, like for advice to a young new sports bettor who doesn't yet understand pricing and who was probably already just betting favorites anyway. But it wasn't until many years later I realized his advice was like flawed in that instance. And here's really why. Let's say there's a game and you price it at, say, like minus 200. A team at minus 200 is basically saying you think that team has a 66% chance of winning. But let's say the odds makers have that same team listed as minus 160. You'd be crazy not to bet that team at minus 160 just because it's higher than some made up number. Value is value. Betting a team at minus 160 that you think the real odds are 200 is a no-brainer. And the same goes, if you think of an event, or let's say a boxer should be, the true odds really should be minus 3,000, but you can bet it at minus 1,000. That still holds value. The term value is so often used wrong. There can be value on a minus 1,000 favorite if you make the true odds much higher. People often assume value is only on underdogs, and it's just not how it works. But now that I took up most of this time, let's get back into a couple more of these games real quick. Let's jump down to San Fran, Cincy. Looks like San Fran's getting some of the action here. We got 54% of bets, which is equaling 71% of the money. So it looks like there's some bigger bets on San Fran. Pinnacle opened 107. They're up to 122. Chris is up 8 cents. I agree with this line movement too. San Fran versus left-handed pitching I'm high on. I like this kid Gosman. Giants bullpen has been solid lately too. It's crazy. Actually, a week ago, I'm not even sure I would like any visiting team playing the Reds in Great America Ballpark, but this San Fran squad is like that new upstart team in baseball. Everyone's kind of jumping on them. What else we got here? Not much data. I mean, these odds makers are just opening these lines later and later and later in the day. Like years ago, all these games would have lines. But they're all scared to post these openers. Let's look at Boston, Toronto. I have no clue what to do in this one, I'll be honest. Last night's game between these two teams is a perfect example of why, betting sports is just hard. Coming into last night's game, all signs pointed to Boston having success versus the lefty Ryu. Ryu goes out, completely dominates them, shut them down. Now, my question is this a sign of things to come for Boston versus lefties, or are their bats going to go cold, or does Ryu just have, the Sox bats figured out? Was this just a one-game fluke? Some games it's easy to look back on after the fact and see what you missed. Now, I didn't bet Boston last night or anything, but if you watched the early market report video yesterday, I talked about Boston looking good as an underdog. Of course, some nights it just comes down to luck. Like Boston bats, they put something like 22 balls in play last night. 12 of them were hard hit, but only recorded 5 total hits. 22 balls in play and only 5 recorded hits. Now, Toronto, they put 32 balls in play, 18 of them were recorded hits. So it's probably best to just ignore it, but I hate when I can't figure out the whys on games after, even after diving into the numbers. It, just makes me want to stay away from the game completely, which is probably what I'm just going to end up doing here with this game. And the bets and money look pretty much split here. Not much line movement. Let's see what else we got here. Really nothing. I mean, there's so many unlined games. Let's look at Milwaukee KC. We got Burns on the hill. He's likely to get lopsided bets and money, which we're already seeing. 78% of the bets, 96% of the money. Aces always get lopsided money. I never like really backing like the ace pitcher. I keep downgrading both these offenses too. They're just so bad right now. But Keller, he isn't as bad as I think like his early numbers indicate. And I'm pretty sure over his last 4 starts he has an ERA in like the mid 3s, which isn't nearly as bad as I think the perception on him is. So And that's exactly what you want to look for. Players or teams that have a public perception one way, but their recent numbers are starting to show the opposite. Those are usually going to be good play on spots there. Total is interesting. 63% of the bets on the over, but 55% of the money's on the under, and we see Pinnacle up to 8 after opening 7.5. And Heritage and Five Dimes have followed them. They usually piggyback on whatever Pinnacle does. I might have to go hunting for some 8s after this because at that number I really like the under. I think Burns, gets through 7 innings fairly easily, and like I was saying, I'm not as down on Keller as most people might be. We should see both managers willing to burn the best of their bullpen arms too, with tomorrow having a day off for both teams. Definitely a spot I'm looking at under here. Burns should do his part, and I'm not scared of the Brewers' bats really against right-handed pitching. They don't hit righties nearly as well as they do lefties. Keller and the right-handers in the bullpen should have some success. And Milwaukee's just going to continue to get bet up, I'm sure. I'm going to stop here. There's not really much to cover as far as games, but hope you guys watching these videos find them helpful or interesting. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to focus more or less on certain aspects, and I'll gladly do it. Only reason I do these videos is because I have to think they can be helpful to some people who are actually serious about betting sports and don't just want picks. If it was up to me, all I would do is, educational content. But the demand for picks is just so great, I have to do them. Because I know the only way to really, help people win long term is the educational stuff. It's basically impossible to help people win money betting sports by just giving them picks because everything is so time sensitive and it's all about pricing. A lot of the bets I make during the day, I'm just beating line moves and I'm not going to post a bet that I make where the price or total isn't widely available, but that's going to do it for now. Until next time, good luck. And as always, may all the umps calls go your way.